I've literally suffered chronic pain and recurring injuries since I was about 8 years old. I was always getting injured in soccer, rugby, motocross, like tendon issues in my knees, in my elbows. My elbows, as long as I can remember, my elbows and my wrists have always been sore. It really limited my physical capabilities and ability and performance. I got good at things, then started getting to the top of levels in swimming, motocross, water polo. I played National League water polo. And I only started playing water polo because I stopped playing rugby because my knees were always sore, my back was always sore, and I fractured my pelvis ice skating actually, and then redid it doing motocross. Someone landed on the back of me. And I believe that's when all those injuries and never being fully rectified, never being fully rehabbed properly, or even my posture and my movement capacity and joint function ever being properly tested and having like baseline measurements of these completed through all the practitioners, clinicians, specialists, allied health professionals that I saw. I was always fundamentally symptomatically treated for what I was acutely presenting for at the time. And then when I was about 12 years old, I started lifting weights. I started getting stronger, started building some muscle, and that actually really helped. It really, really helped. But then again, I was getting injured in the gym. I was sore in the gym. And everything was quite restricted. And I could never express truly what I knew I had in me physically because of the presence of pain. It was always, pain and injuries were always the rev limiter to my capacity physically. And I do believe that if this wasn't the case, and I only say this now at 33 years old, finally uncovering some solutions and methodologies and treatments and ways of movement and training and understanding of human physiology and biology, and now knowing more personally from 22 years of training experience and no more than 7 consecutive days off the gym in 22 years. That may have been a contributing factor, that I was always doing too much and I never gave my body the full ability to heal, but physical activity and training was always my passion. It was always what I loved most, and I tried every sport, and I really, for as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a professional athlete. That's what I wanted to do, and I knew it had it in me, and it was just always my body let me down. And so I say that because it wasn't a lack of consistency or discipline or dedication and perseverance to training, because no more than 7 consecutive days off the gym in 22 years, up until recently when I had a hernia repair surgery and I had to force 6 weeks off. So in saying that, I probably wouldn't have had that time. I've had that hernia for 10 years And it was only after I competed in the state and national level bodybuilding shows that I placed top 3 in all 3 shows, including Australia, that I finally thought, yeah, it's time to get this done, because it was getting bigger and it's not good to have these sort of things and training through them. But at that time, my whole outlook and values of human movement changed. That forced 6 weeks off really gave me an opportunity to think about what truly mattered in regards to training. For the most part, I would say 20 years, 18 years, that was predominantly training like a bodybuilder, using machines, heavy weight, lots of volume, lots of sets, lots of reps, lots of intensity techniques, lots of just brute mechanical stress on the body. And while it built me a lot of muscle, I think in that 22 years, I've probably gained a lean 60 kilos of tissue on my body. So it did serve its purpose then, but at what cost? Like, I was still always in pain, still always had joint dysfunctions and didn't move very well. My mobility and flexibility, while it was better than a lot, because over years I'd started to implement it into my training, it was still fundamentally broken at a base level. So I was never fully getting it better. But now, look, it's wild. The first sort of training we do is push-ups and chin-ups and squats and body weight movement. And it's funny that now, transitioning back into that style of movement, things are starting to get better. Like, it's normal human movement patterns, right? Baseline level of function for each joint being able to do what it's supposed to do and not be in pain, and then progressively make those movements more intense by increasing the range of motion, not necessarily the weight, and increasing the strength of not only the muscles but the joints. Oof. Sorry ladies, tiling pump. It's hot over here, that's why I'm breathing like a pig. It's humid. But not only training the muscles, but training the joints and the connective tissue. Look, hypertrophy style training works, but it's very one-dimensional. This is why we see so many injuries, soft tissue injuries and joint pain in bodybuilders and resistance training, because they somewhat neglect just a baseline level of function, because we get fancy and we use all the machines that are convenient, that isolate. Yeah, they isolate, they grow the muscle. That's how you grow a muscle. You put a lot of tension isolating into it. But if you've got injuries, if you've got dysfunctions, if you've got imbalances, if you've got pain that's always there, so you're augmenting the way that you train and you express your movement, you will only build muscle and strength and capacity on top of a poor foundation of dysfunction, which, if you are suffering from pain and recurring injuries and plateaus in muscle growth, or your body is just not objectively progressing with time and intention invested into your training, you're missing the picture. And I did for 20 years. But now heading back to this sort of stuff, it kind of makes sense, because you can really start to progressively improve the way that your body functions biomechanically at its joints, the posture, by just increasing your ability to get into positions. And the basic movements do this. And I think if you've got that base level of function and strength, and end range straight, so where you can get into these deep stretched long range positions where both the muscles, the connective tissue and the joints have tension on them throughout the entire movement in a stretched position. Not only are you getting flexibility and mobility work in the exact same time, but you're getting a severe hypertrophy effect throughout that whole section that you're working, because this stretched position is very anabolic for the connective and white tissues, your tendons. But obviously, if there's a lot of stretch there, there's a lot of tension, there's going to be a lot of growth in the muscles as well. It's going to take more recovering, yes. But return on investment for these sort of long range movements is super valuable. Injury prevention, injury rehabilitation. Look, you might not be able to start in these positions initially because they are such stretched, high tension positions, but you progress there. You start with short range where it's more muscle dominant, less connective tissue, no strain on the connective tissue. Work to your mid range, work to the long range. Range of motion is such an arbitrary measurement because people use it non-contextually. I think joint position or joint tension is probably more appropriate. How much tension is through the joint, connective tissue and or muscle, or is it segmented from the starting position and throughout that whole movement? So you can heal your body. After 22 years, I've finally figured this out. And it's really, really simple to blend your aesthetic style training for physiques and confidence, because look, I want to look like this for a reason. Like, it gives me confidence, it makes me feel proud of the effort and the work that I put in and the intention that I have about my body and my appearance. All of that matters. When you're confident and proud of what stares back at you in the mirror, you approach life a little bit differently. I know that because at 12, I was 50 kilos overweight, 20 kilos, sorry, overweight than what a 12-year-old could. From 10 to 12, I put on 20 kilos of fat when my parents divorced and I turned to food as my comfort, which has been another challenge in itself, even to this day, but it's a story for another day. You can heal your body. You can fix your joints. That chronic pain, that sore shoulder, that bad knee, that stiffness, lack of movement, lack of range of motion, just overall like not feeling fully free inside your own body. That's not normal, and it doesn't have to be that way either. If this is something you're interested in learning, drop a message in the comments. Let me know what you're suffering with, what pain, what injuries, what recurring body part is not growing because it's always sore or it's injured, or your posture feels out of whack, you just feel imbalanced. Drop a message, follow me, like, subscribe. I'll see you later. Bye.